And you can't just watch an HGTV episode and go buy something. It's not as easy as people think. Okay, and you have to have either a partner or a mentor. There's some great coaches out there. Learn from their lessons, learn from their mistakes, so that you don't lose.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. This is your host, Yona Weiss. I am so grateful to be joined today by Michael Stohler. Mike, how are you today?
Doing fantastic. It is actually under 100 degrees here in Phoenix, so it's a wonderful fall day. And
beautiful weather when you're not sweating, before you get to your car out of your front door.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Just a little background. I love to give a little context to our listeners who so diligently listen again and again and again. I'm so grateful to this incredible crowd of listeners out there. But Michael is the co-founder with his wife of Gateway Private Equity Group. So they're a hotel real estate investment firm, which is pretty uncommon among our guests thus far. We have had, if you want to go back and listen, we had a great guest, the J.R. Patel out of Chicago, who is an incredible person, talked a lot about the market. And we recorded that back in April or May. So it was really fresh when the whole world was hit very strong by COVID. But I'd love to hear Mike's perspective today because, hotels are really not doing or are considered, I would say, by a lot of people as something people should be staying far away from right now, right? The hospitality industry has been hit very hard. But I think because of who you are and what you've done, shifting from multifamily into the hotel business, you kind of have a totally different perspective on that. So let me hear a little background. What was it that was the impetus for you to change from, multifamily investing into hotel investing?
Yeah, it's a great question because I have, probably 20 years in multifamily, and it's what I know. It got to the point where out of the blue, someone asked to buy one of our multifamily complexes, and it was such a high number that I was kind of thinking, it's like, this is, I'd be a fool not to take it, right? But I still didn't take it because it made money, and I didn't know anything else because I didn't want to be, the cap rates were getting so low in the area that I was like, if I sell this, what am I going to go into? I'm going to have to buy something else that has a very low cap rate. That's what's happening here in Arizona with the California investors and Canadian investors and all these people. They're just coming in sight unseen. And this was someone that bought our complex that was sight unseen for an exorbitant amount of money. And I always kept my ear out on, I didn't want to jump into what other people were already doing. If everyone's doing it, it's probably not good, or it's not the best thing to do at the moment. And I was like, you know what? I'd be the only person that I know that owns a hotel. So I thought, well, maybe I should do it. But
maybe there's something there.
Maybe there's something there. So I researched, and I had a buddy that had been doing it for 15, 20 years. And what I did is I sat down and talked to him. I said, let's do this. I don't know anything about hotels. You're going to teach me. And I let him run that first hotel. And I gave him a piece of the equity. I'm not going to pay you, but I'll give you a piece of the equity. And it went really well. The reason why I like the hotels is because, and we get into this later, but it's not only it's real estate, but it's a business that sits on the real estate. Right. So I have two different things going on at the same time. Instead of with multifamily, it's just It's real estate.
Right, it's rental property income. There's no really business. I mean, that is a business to a certain degree into itself,
Hmm.
right? All real estate is a certain amount of business. But yeah, I totally know what you're saying, that the hotel in of itself is a business and has a lot of different
Hmm.
potential sources of income coming through that, and a whole different model. I mean, you have to keep up to standards if you want to have a certain
Hmm.
flag, uh, right? A certain brand
Yeah.
under your hotel. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely that. For someone, it sounded like you are the that typical newbie when it came to hotel. And I think what
Hmm.
you did was what I would have done had I been in your shoes. And I think any of our listeners who are out there thinking that the first thing you do is find someone who already knows the business. And this really, I think, goes for any type of asset class. There are people out there like, hey, I heard mobile home parks are great. Like, yeah, I'm just going to go buy one. No, go
Yeah.
find someone who is doing it really well, take them on as a mentor, and invest together with them in their deal, or bring them on to your deal, whatever it is. And that's probably the best way to get your feet wet in a new asset class. Is there any other, kind
Hmm.
of tips or tricks, things that were valuable to you that you would, looking back say, oh, that's what I should have done, or someone who's getting new into a different asset class?
Oh, oh yeah. It's, I learned the hard way when I first started. I'm old, so I predate the internet. uh, when we first started investing, went to the seminars and said, oh, just buy it, no matter how, put it on a credit card, doesn't matter, just go buy a house, go just do it.
Right.
So yeah, we did it. Uh, but the thing is, you're spot on. If you don't have a mentor, well, I didn't know how to be a landlord. I knew how to buy something, but now what? I didn't know a lease. Yeah, I couldn't punch in to Zoom or not Zoom, but Google and say, hey, show me a lease. So you learn those types of things. And I learned really quick, especially with going into hotels. You have to build a team, and you can't just watch an HGTV episode and go buy something.
Hmm.
It's not as easy as people think. Okay, and you have to have either a partner or a mentor. Go to There's some great coaches out there. Learn from their lessons, learn from their mistakes, so that you don't lose. Because if you don't do that, you're going to lose. And what I found out in the hotel business is, wow, it's not just collecting rent every month. I have 15 employees. I have 20 employees per hotel. I do have those brand standards. I have marketing, sales. I have 20 to 30 different vendors.
Hmm.
It's just, it is running a business.
Sure. And someone with your experience, and I mean, what I always wanted to ask you was, someone who has a lot of experience in, not only real estate investing, but in a lot of different other fields. I mean, you were a pilot,
Mm-hmm.
right? You were a
Yep.
naval pilot, right? You
Yep.
were a pilot in the Navy, right?
Well, no, I was an operations specialist in the Navy. I
Operations
have
specialist.
these glasses that kept me from flying. So I
Gotcha.
learned flying the hard way. I spent the money, went to different flight schools, and shoved out the bucks and flew little airplanes around until I had enough hours
That's
to
awesome.
get hired on, by the airlines.
That's awesome. So, what I want to kind of shift gears a little bit here, because I
Yeah.
mean, I think not a lot of people have been through real estate investing. You start, just a little history. Like you got involved in real estate, you know, when I was like, many years, like 20 years ago already, more than 20 years. So
Yeah.
you've been through a downturn, right? Went through the last, big recession back in
Hmm.
2009. And obviously right now we're going through something similar. People don't really know what it is yet, because it wasn't as drastic as what happened with Lehman's Brothers and everything, the stock market crashing. But the economy has, besides for the, the checks that have been coming from the federal government to help people, the stimulus, but the economy's been hurting.
Hmm.
The market's been hurting. And I have heard a lot of people compare this current situation in the economy to the previous recession. What are your thoughts on that, and how is it similar?
Yeah, it's similar, and it's different. The one that we went through in 2007, that area, there was a lot of speculation happening in the real estate market. People were just buying everything sight unseen. People weren't living in the homes. Uh, Therefore, when the economy tanked, there's just a lot of excess homes that were just given up.
Mm-hmm.
These were not people that were actually living in the homes. These are people that had portfolio loans that were buying 20, 30, 40 homes all at the same time, not even looking at them,
Right.
uh, out of state investors. That isn't happening anymore. After that, the banks really tightened up.
Right.
The situation with this is back in 2007, people were still working. Things were still going on. People were still traveling. It didn't really hurt the vacations and things like that. Well, when you have a virus that's coming in, now you have people aren't traveling. People aren't spending money because it's just a very different type of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Instead of a stock market type of a thing, now you have this virus. So it's been very, very interesting, and there's some very good things and some bad things that's come out of it within my studies in the hospitality market. I'm actually very excited about the hospitality market coming up, just because it's given people the opportunity to, people that study like me, what type of hotels
Right.
are still doing well, where are they located. So instead of the pie sky, I want to own this big Marriott, I want to do this, with all these conference and fancy host restaurants and bars, and now it's those didn't do, they're not doing very well. So it's you sit there and say, okay, I want that lunch. I call it the lunch pail Joe, a blue collar type of hotel. And I'm like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I don't have the ego. I want the limited service off the highway. The criteria has really, really changed. And
Yeah.
it's surprising.
And what are so you specifically, what are your hotels? What are they currently, and what are you looking at? Because you said there's going to be opportunities right now
Yeah.
in the current state, and you feel very optimistic about those
Mhm.
opportunities. So what kind of specifically do without giving away the all the secrets, but what
That's
specifically
okay.
do you think is going to be the most valuable type of hotels in in the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what all of us that are studying, and I think everyone, whether you're multifamily, single family, fix and flip, you still need to study the market, study the neighborhood, study the zip codes, study the rent structures. You can't just buy.
Right.
It's the same, especially when you're in hotels, which you're buying the business. So what we found out is during this whole time period, uh, extended stay has done extremely well. Those are the places that nurses, doctors, the front line first responders are staying at when they don't want to can't go home because of COVID or the fears. They're in extended stay. The limited service hotels, zero conference rooms, zero restaurants. Now most of us don't even have the free breakfast. It's no longer the buffet, right? You can't have the buffet. Those are the ones, the ones that have like truck driver parking.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. The hotel. I have this hotel. It's in nowhere, Arizona, but because it's off of a highway and has truck parking, we're still doing 70, 80% occupancy, even during this time period. And we were never below probably 50, 55%. You switch that to the fancier one that I have that's in this brand new business park right outside. It's by all this, it's in a tech center. And it's like, man, this is going to be really cool. It's not, it's doing 40%, 50%, because the corporate guys aren't there. So, and those that are outside of the urban areas are doing very well, a lot better than the ones in the urban. Because of COVID, people are not staying, they don't want to stay inside of a big city with a lot of people around. So they're going just 20 minutes, 25 minutes outside either side of the big metro areas, and
Right.
staying in the same hotel, plus
Interesting.
cheaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes so much sense, especially we're not talking about we're not talking about the business conferences, right, where you're
Hmm.
getting hundreds of people or to come there, business meetings. It's a different demographic that you're
Hmm.
marketing to and you're catering to, and that changes a lot. So I totally get that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing is when people are traveling nowadays, uh, they are perhaps traveling to see a sick person, that has COVID or something like that, and or they're just staying the night, and moving on. They're not staying 4 days, 5 days. So
Right.
those type of limited service type of hotels just caters perfectly. They can nice warm bed, free breakfast, and they're on, and they're going.
Gotcha. Well, that's a totally, yeah. And for someone listening to this that's thinking about getting into the hotel space or looking at the types of hotels, obviously you got to be doing a lot of market research, a lot of market
Mhm.
analysis, and checking out what's working, what are the
Yep.
occupancies of hotels currently, which types, which locations. Obviously, all of that comes into a great deal of detail. And I've heard from many people in basically every asset class that's out there, but specifically in hotels, you have to know your clientele, right? You have to know who you can attract there. And it sounds like once you know that, it can be much more successful.
Absolutely. And getting back to one of the reasons why I liked hotels over the multifamily is during this time period, you have to understand that if you have a $5 million multifamily and a $5 million hotel, I can change my rent every day.
Right. That's true.
Okay. You're stuck, multifamily people are stuck 6 month year leases. And because it's a business that sits on real estate, I'm eligible for all the SBA help or SBA loans,
Gotcha.
where the multifamily is not. So I was able to get the PPP. I was able to get the EIDL loans.
That's a
Uh,
game
so
changer.
it's a game changer for the hotel. So that's another reason why you kind of look at it that I have an appreciating land asset with a business on top, and I'm eligible for all that assistance.
So yeah, even when occupancy has been down and the
Hmm.
actual, numbers, you still have that support of the, of a business, small business loans. You're able
Hmm.
to take advantage of those things and keep it afloat, which I think
Hmm.
is huge. And not just keep
Yeah.
it afloat, but to pivot and to see what's working, what's not, and adjust accordingly. So that's awesome. What would be one of your, biggest, I guess, value adds? Meaning to say, when you're looking to take over a new hotel, and maybe
Hmm.
now more than ever, what are you looking to change there, and what are you looking to add to that to make it more successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. You look at if it has a flag, what we call a flag, what flag it's under, Marriott, Hilton, and we see how within that demographic, can we switch it to something that is more owner friendly? That's the
Hmm.
first thing. There are some corporations out there that are not owner centric. So we look at that. And then it's just like with multifamily, it's how can I increase what we call an ADR, the average daily rate, just like with multifamily, how can I increase rents
Right.
and decrease expenses? So I'm always looking at their vendors. In hotels, we have 30, sometimes 40 different vendors that we go through.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's unbelievable, from telecommunications to internet to the breakfast, the maintenance. It's We all have vendor contracts. So you look at those and you can always find contracts that you can either cut, that is duplicated, uh, and the ones that uh, I use at different hotels, I can do, kind of combine it and buy in bulk, if they're close enough together.
Right.
So that's one of the things that you look at. And then you look at the reviews and the staffing. It's amazing if I go in and put in my people the way that I want to run the business. It's amazing how then the reviews start popping up and then people stay, because people read the reviews, no
And
matter where you're at.
when you say reviews, is there certain places people are leaving reviews? TripAdvisor,
Yeah.
Google, like what?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Google's is becoming, they're buying everything. They're trying to take over the review world. So the Google reviews are just uh, so critical. Um, and you can go in, it takes around 20 good reviews to counteract one bad.
Really?
It's just, that's the way that the reviews work. So it's very important to come in and say, okay, because I'm analytical and because I know how to run the business, this is how we run things. This is how we handle the front desk. This is how we handle housekeeping. And you do it that way in order to get the good reviews. And then you can increase revenue. You get people staying at your hotel.
Wow. It sounds fascinating. I mean, I'm always fascinated, and I hope our listeners are fascinated by learning a different aspect of the real estate business, because there's really a plethora of ways you can get involved. Now, are you finding investors that
Mhm.
are similar, that have invested in other real estate asset classes as well, that are investing with you? Have you taken, previous investors from your multifamily properties, over, or is it a totally different kind of clientele that you're reaching?
It is I would say actually most of our investors are multifamily investors, whether or not they've owned multifamily, but they've invested in multifamily. And it's kind of funny. It's people look at me and say, "You own a hotel?" It's like they didn't even think individuals could own hotels. So then it piques their interest,
Which is
and
fascinating, because I
it
think
is.
like 80% of hotels are owned by individuals.
They
I think
are, but
something like
it
that.
just people just don't think, they think it big corporations, big REITs, big private equity groups, Blackstone, the $1 billion type of corporate entities. And then they're like, tell me more. And so whether it's, I think most of them just want to diversify into a different class. It's like, okay, when the multifamilies, I own single family, and we own a bunch of single family also that we do. But then they're like, I just want to say that I own a hotel. I own a piece of hotel. So they'll give you money and they invest in the hotels.
Right.
And a lot of them just think it's funny. It's the cool factors is what they keep saying. It's
So
just
that's interesting. It's just the cool factor. Like I want to do something different. Like, why not? Yeah.
yeah.
And it does sound exciting. They're like, well, maybe if I invest, I can get a free stay, like
Yeah,
that's
they always ask, hey, do I get one of those nice cool owner cards? Am I automatically platinum if I own a piece of hotel?
right. Right. You tell them you
Yeah,
don't want
that's
that.
the
you don't
no.
you don't want you don't want all the, you say you're talking to 40 different vendors. I
Mhm.
can imagine, hotel owners probably get cold called more than
Yeah,
anyone out there.
yeah, it is. It's crazy, and but I love it. And there's a lot of opportunities. I don't know if you've heard of the CMBS loans.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, those are the opportunities that are coming up. Unlike banks, it's a security,
Hmm.
and the hotels that are going under, the ones that you hear, all these hotels that are going into foreclosure, all these hotels that are in trouble, most of them, it's either mismanagement, um, the ownership doesn't know what they're doing, or most of them are CMBS type loans. The CMBS, they don't know how to defer a payment. It's a security.
Yeah.
So you can't call them up and say, hey, I need to defer, I can't make my payment. They don't know how to handle that. So there's so many opportunities are coming up that you can even assume the loans.
Wow.
So it's just, I can't wait.
That sounds like, yeah. And I know quite a few people in the note investing space, and they're just cleaning up right now. They're really taking advantage of this opportunity, as they did, back in 2008, 2009, when there was just a plethora. Again, the second time we used that word in one podcast, which I think that's an anomaly. So we're gonna shift. I think that's just a sign. We're gonna shift and jump right into the final four, Mike. How do you feel about
All
that?
right. Perfect.
Okay, so the first question I ask every one of my guests is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
Oh, the worst job I ever had. I don't know if it's the worst one or the best one, but I was an ice cream scooper in the middle of winter in Indiana. So I ate my way to $3 an hour or whatever it was. But you sit there for 8 hours with no one coming in, and it's 20 degrees outside, and I'm looking at all this ice cream.
Wow. That's so, I mean,
But
it was, I'm sure there was some, some benefits you had to that.
put on some weight, which was but that's kind of a funny worst one. There's been some other ones, but some real fun ones that you were given in the Navy, some jobs that you were assigned.
Right.
For,
I'm sure.
yeah.
Work your way up the ranks.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So second question I have is, what's a book that you've read that has given you a paradigm shift?
Oh, it's interesting. There is a good friend of mine who is one of my mentors. He did a book several years ago that was basically, I think it was the secrets of the rich. It was as far as real estate, and he was the first. That was the first book that kind of introduced me to, you don't have to do it yourself. Back in the day, I thought, okay, you buy an asset, you fix it up, you wait a couple of years, and then you sell it. That book was the first one that said, why are you using other people's money? And I was like, oh,
There you go.
never thought about that. So that was the book that kind of switched. Now, the very first one, of course, every real estate person 20 years ago, we picked up Robert Kiyosaki's book.
Yeah,
And,
that's huge.
That was the huge one that said, oh, you know what? I don't have to sit in this cubicle all day and, eating donuts and, typing on a keyboard. So that was probably the very first one.
That's incredible. Yeah. And a lot of our guests have mentioned that, because it's just such an impactful book for people that didn't get those type of, pearls of wisdom in their upbringing, which I certainly didn't. And I know a lot of people haven't. So it has been a big a paradigm shift for a lot of people. But I'm actually going to be releasing an episode. It might come out before this one, with Omar Khan, who's a friend of a multifamily investor, and he comes from a great background in private equity, and he just ripped on that book.
Yeah,
was the first person I ever heard to just like take it down as but that's interesting. There's only obviously different perspectives to everything.
Oh, John Burley's book was 7 Steps to Private Money.
7 Steps to Private Money by John Burley. Gotcha. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to put that in the show notes over there. Third question, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I think with the ADD that I have, I pick up a lot of skills and then drop them, then pick them up again. And so I think the skill would be to be able to pick up any, for instance, playing the guitar. I'd love to be able to have the patience, or not to have the ADD where I get good at it and then like I'm done. And don't touch it for 6 months to a year, because then I move on to something else, or I get bogged down into something. So just that skill to sit there and say, just stay with the things. Because what happens is the real estate and the other things that I'm doing are just so overwhelming and all encompassing that I forget to do the fun stuff. Or then when I do pick up the fun stuff, it's like all of a sudden I get busy again.
Yeah.
Don't drop it. So I'd love to have the skill set to sit there and say, you know what, just put it in your, what I call a default calendar. That's what I live by. And just for an hour a day, just stick with something that's fun.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a great skill to have. Just have a calendar where you can make sure you're doing the things that you love to do and you want to do. That's really, it's a discipline in of itself
Yeah.
to be in control of, of your time. It's difficult, especially when you're running multiple businesses, but important thing to do.
Yeah.
So that's
It
awesome.
is.
So a fourth and final question for you, Mike, is what does success mean to you?
Okay. Well, there's something that I have on my wall behind my office wall that I post and I look at every day. It says, build a life that you don't need a vacation from. And that's kind of my mantra. I'm working my booty off now, but I get to pick when I want to work, whether it's in the morning, in the afternoon, I can take time off. And it's something that I don't mind doing. There's so many people out there
Mhm.
that just dread what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I always say, stop it then, do build a life that you don't need to take a vacation from. And that's I try to live that day to day and and try to remind myself that I'm having fun.
That's awesome. Love that. I love that. And that really sums up everything. I totally agree with that. And I love the perspective because so many people give different answers. And that's why I ask, it's a very specific question. And it's totally subjective because people are going to say everyone says something different, but there is a common theme. And I think for a lot of our guests, at least until this point, one of those common themes is, life is too short to, to be a slave to someone else's time. And that's what I love about the real estate industry is it's just filled with entrepreneurs and people that are, just doing what they want to do and doing what they love to do. And, beyond that, it's making an impact on a lot of other people's lives at the same time. So I love that. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your time coming on and joining me today for having this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I certainly did. And I hope our listeners did as well. So until next time, we'll talk again soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. And to our listeners, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.